A little sea snail decides to team up with a huge whale to face the dangers of the open sea, while the dolphins fight off an attack by a horde of moray eels. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, The Snail and the Whale, from 2019, and Magic Arch, from 2020. On the docks of a seaside town, a small snail watches the ocean and marvels as she sees the cargo ships moving through the water. The little one then has the idea of sailing the seas, because her biggest dream is to have the chance to explore the vastness that she admires so much. To do this, she tries to run up to a ship that is about to set sail, and positions herself on one of the metal rods, to get ready and make a big leap towards the anchor. As soon as the chains start pulling on the object, the snail jumps up and grabs hold at the last second. However, its joy is short-lived, as two seagulls suddenly appear and start trying to devour it. With no other way out, she decides to dive into the water, and after being almost swallowed by the birds, the snail returns to her rock, where all the other members of her group stay every day. After a few minutes of thinking, the little animal comes up with the idea of using the goo on her body to write a message, sliding down the stone and creating a call for a trip around the world. Hours pass, and no one shows up to grant the little one's wish, but just as she was about to give up, she hears a large jet of water shooting up behind her, and as she turns around, she notices a large whale approaching the shore. The creature swims through the area and leaps across the surface, leaving the snail impressed. The mammal then invites the little animal on a trip across the ocean, and without thinking twice, she climbs onto the whale's tail and the pair set off into the open sea. The new friends stroll through the ocean, and the snail is super excited to finally be able to observe all that marine life. The whale jumps over the waves while spinning its giant body in the air, performing various maneuvers in the sea. Wanting to introduce the little one to other creatures, the whale goes down to the depths of the ocean, where they walk along a large coral reef with hundreds of other fish. However, the situation starts to get dangerous when the pair enter an underwater cave and are intercepted by a group of sharks, who surround the whale in the middle of the journey. During the ambush, one of the predators attacks the giant mammal, which hits it with its tail, throwing it away. To get out of the trap, the pair try to swim out of the cave, and halfway there, another of the sharks approaches the whale and bites its fin. When attacked, she smashes the predator against the walls of the room and heads for the exit. Due to its size, the whale gets stuck in the hole in the cave, but with a lot of effort, it manages to free itself and avoid the attack of the last shark. Now safe from predators, the pair visit a large island and swim freely with the other fish, while the snail watches the rain arc created by the whale's jet of water into the sky. Sometime later, a storm forms in the ocean, and while they are trying to get out of the chaos, an aggressive wave hits the pair of friends, and the snail is suddenly thrown away from its partner. The whale then begins to search the depths for the little one, and after circling the area for a few seconds, it quickly rescues the snail, preventing its friend from sinking. Back on the surface, the travelers pass through an area full of icebergs and have fun swimming alongside penguins. Then, after spending the night gazing at the stars, the pair arrive on yet another mountainous island, and as they approach the coast, several racing boats begin to pass them by. Stunned by the engines, the whale heads for the beach and ends up stranded on the sand. The snail is thrown away by the impact, and as she recovers, she notices that the sea level is dropping, and tries to think of a way to save her friend. Even using all its strength, and receiving help from the little one, the whale can't move, but when it notices a staircase behind them, the snail has an idea, and runs towards the staircase. In the middle of the path, two seagulls are fighting over scraps of food in the sand, and the snail uses her shell to disguise herself so that the birds don't notice her. After climbing the stairs and scaling the bushes, the little animal discovers that on the other side of the beach, there is a small school where some children are playing in the courtyard. At that moment, when she looks back, she sees a seagull about to devour her, so she throws herself down the slope while protecting herself in her shell. Just as the bird was about to reach her again, the snail passes through a fence, preventing the attack. But the seagull doesn't give up, and flies over the top of the poor one again, but just as it's about to swallow its prey, it's hit by one of the children playing on the tree swing. The snail tries to cross the playground, and after being thrown from one side to the other, it manages to cushion its fall in a glass of water. When recess is over, the students go back into their classrooms to return to their studies, and to keep up with them, the little one attaches herself to the teacher's back. Noticing that there is a little animal stuck to the woman's body, the children start laughing, and while the teacher calls the students' attention, the snail sticks itself to the blackboard and writes a message for people to save the whale. Everyone rushes to the beach, and on noticing the whale stranded on the sand, the teacher calls the fire department, and everyone digs a hole around the giant animal, while using the water from the truck to keep it wet. But nothing really seems to help, and the whale begins to take its last breaths. Just when everyone thought they had failed to rescue the large mammal, the snail notices that the sea level has risen again and the water is once again reaching the whale's body. People band together to push him back into the ocean, and quickly manage to complete the rescue successfully. The pair say goodbye to the students and firefighters, and leave. Back on the shore, the whale brings the snail to the rock where the rest of the members of her group are. The little one tells stories of everything she has experienced with her great friend, and everyone is amazed at the things a little snail has managed to do. Believing that this will be the last time they will see each other, she says goodbye to the whale, but as soon as the large mammal dives into the water, it raises its tail again, so that this time, all the snails will join it on its journey. The next day, while exploring the depths of the ocean, the dolphin Delphi finds a dungeon beneath his city and an old painting on the wall catches his eye. The dolphin quickly tells Zeb about his discovery, but the fish is furious with his friend because it's his fault that he's late for the Dolphin Olympics. Alpha is the big winner of all the games he takes part in, and this year was no different. However, Zeb claims that the dolphin remains undefeated only because Delphi refuses to take part in the games. Otherwise, he could easily defeat him with his secret trick. After saying this, the fish realizes that his friend isn't listening at all, because all his attention is on Mia, the dolphin he's in love with. Zeb then advises Delphi to ask her out, but the young one doesn't have the courage to do so because his father, the mayor of Fishtown, wants her to marry Alpha. Just then, Mia approaches Delphi to talk to him and Alpha appears to tease him, saying that he didn't show up at the Olympics for fear of being defeated. In order to avoid any kind of discomfort, Delphi ignores his competitor and everyone goes to watch the mayor's inauguration, which is about to begin. Octavian has been the head of that city for a few years now and, during his speech, he manages to convince the population that he is the best option to remain in that position. However, Fish Udo has some complaints to make and questions the mayor about the promises he made before he was elected. In his defense, the octopus issues the statements suggested by his advisor and once again wins the support of the residents. Realizing that he has lost yet another debate, the Fish Udo is furious and says that when he becomes mayor, he will show the inhabitants who Octavian really is. Udo knows that every day, Alpha and the octopus talk about the passwords to enter the city and intends to use this information against them at some point. Meanwhile, in a remote part of Fishtown, the walrus gather to devise a plan to take over the town. These animals are angry at being forced to live in the underworld while the rest of the inhabitants live in a prosperous environment. So the leader of the Morays decides to send 3 spies to find his secret contact, a double agent who will help them in their mission to take over the city. Later, Delphi is on his way to the old fortress to practice his secret trick and Zeb reminds him that Octavian has forbidden all residents to go there since the day the dolphin's father disappeared. Upon hearing this, the young one is saddened to remember that it has been a year since his father disappeared, but Delphi still believes that he is alive, contrary to what everyone thinks. A few minutes into the journey, the pair arrive at a submerged castle and Zeb is impressed by the grandeur of the place. After entering, the dolphin begins his training and uses his tail to throw a large rock against a wooden door. However, he fails to achieve his goal and the stone bounces back to its original position without causing any damage to the target. Encouraged by his friend, Delphi makes another attempt and the rotation of his body forms a whirlwind which, after hitting the rock, destroys the wooden door in a single blow. The impact of this attack is so strong that it reaches even the moraines outside the ruins and Nick decides to go inside to investigate what has happened. Just then, the fish Udo appears and is furious when he realizes that the moray eels haven't arrived at the agreed location. So he decides to leave to put his plan B into practice. Meanwhile, Delphi celebrates the discovery he has just made and explores the new place he has found hidden in the depths. Excited, he swims quickly around the place and brags about his victory, saying that he is as wise as the Demetra tortoise. As he says this, he crosses an ancient archway and Zeb realizes that his friend has, in fact, turned into the turtle. At first, the fish doesn't quite understand what has just happened and comes to the conclusion that Delphi has been swallowed by her. But the dolphin soon realizes what has caused this transformation. To prove his theory about the magic arch, Zeb decides to take the test and turns into a big striped shark. On his second attempt, the animal wants a lot of money and is turned into a treasure chest. Desperate because he can barely move, he asks his friend for help who, after going through the portal, brings them both back to their original form. What neither of them imagined was that the moray eels would be there watching their every move and have just discovered the existence of the magic arch. Delphi quickly swims back to Fishtown to reveal his great discovery to Octavian. However, Zeb tries to convince him to keep it a secret. As they were about to enter the city, Alpha appeared and asked for the password. As Delphi doesn't know what to say, He forbids him to pass and asks what the young one was doing outside the boundaries of his territory. Furious at being barred, the young one leaves, at which point Mia appears with her best friend. The young woman scolds her fiancé for his attitude and decides to leave when Alpha starts treating her like his property, even though the two haven't even married yet. Furious, Mia decides to vent to her friend about her arranged marriage and reveals that she is in love with Delphi. Listening to her vent, Dora can't understand how this is possible, because for her Alpha is everything a young dolphin could want in a partner. At this point, Mia begins to suspect that her friend is fancying her fiancé, but Dora tells her that it's not true and manages to convince Mia that she's just worried about her future. Before returning home and telling their boss the news, the moray eels decide to try out the magic arch and use their powers to transform themselves into much larger and more menacing creatures. Afterwards, Nick reveals that he has a new plan and says that his friends must remain in the ruins to protect the portal while he swims to Marinius to tell him the news. This way, the boss can take all the moray eels to that location so that they can all transform and use an army to take over the city. Luckily, Delphi manages to overhear the plan and quickly returns to Fishtown in order to reveal the moray's intentions to Octavian. This time, he's swimming so fast that not even Alpha and his friends can stop him from entering the city. Mia is about to reveal to her father that she doesn't want to marry the groom he has chosen when Delphi appears and tells them about the magic arch. After explaining everything that happened, the dolphin is frustrated to realize that the mayor doesn't believe what he's saying. Even so, the young one insists on warning him about the moray eels, which are now the size of whales and intend to invade the town. However, no matter what Delphi says, no one but Mia believes his stories, and Octavian challenges him to demonstrate his great secret ability on the pretext that only then will he believe that he has found a lost ruin. At that moment, Delphi is overwhelmed by nerves and fails to pull off his great trick, opening a gap to be ridiculed by the mayor. The fish Udo was hiding behind the rocks listening to all the talk and discovered that the moray eels were trying to trick him. He tells himself that they will regret it. When her beloved leaves, Mia tries to convince her father to listen to Delphi, because if he's telling the truth, Fishtown is in danger. So the octopus decides to send Alpha on a mission and orders him to go to the ruins with his friends to see if there is indeed a magic arch. Immediately, Mia goes to talk to Delphi and says she believes he is telling the truth. However, the dolphin thinks that the young woman just feels sorry for him and leaves. Seeing his friend in a daze, Zeb begins to worry about him, but Mia says she will support him and swims to the ruins, even though she knows the moray eels could still be there. Instead of following the mayor's orders, Alpha decides to start training the guards and abandons the mission to go to the fortress. So Mia calls Dora to accompany her there, but the dolphin says she trusts what Alpha is saying, so she thinks it's a waste of time to check what Delphi said. With no other choice, the young woman decides to embark on this mission alone, and Zeb tells his friend that Mia is on her way to the fortress. When he discovers that the young woman is risking her life to support him, Delphi goes after her. Sitting on his throne, the mayor begins to wonder what will happen to the city if the dolphin is telling the truth and is afraid of losing Mia. Nostalgic, he remembers the day he found his daughter lost in the ocean and decided to adopt her. Since then, he has loved her as if she were his biological daughter. After a few minutes of traveling, the young woman arrives at the fortress and sees the portal that Delphi was talking about. At that moment, she is happy to know that her beloved was telling the truth, but she worries about the future of her city. Suddenly, Dora appears, but it doesn't take long before they are both surrounded by the giant moray eels. When he reaches the ruins, Delphi spots the pair trying to escape from their enemies and ends up being attacked while trying to help Dora. The two dolphins were about to be devoured by the moray eels when Mia managed to distract them and attract their attention. She then hides in a small hole, causing her enemies to end up buried when they try to reach her. Delphi and Dora then take the opportunity to flee and call for reinforcements, as they know they won't be able to defeat those monsters on their own. They quickly swim to Octavian's throne to tell him what has happened, and the octopus is furious to discover that his daughter is in danger. He orders Alpha to go and rescue her, and he says he can easily take care of the problem. Together with two other guards, the dolphin swims up to the fortress, but the trio are soon chased out. Meanwhile, Delphi thinks of a way to rescue Mia safely and theorizes that there is another entrance they need to pass through in order not to be seen. The next step is to go and talk to Demetra and ask her if his father said anything about the hidden fortress before he disappeared. The turtle then claims that Delphius was always talking about this fortress and swam through a hidden tunnel to get there. After entering the ruined site, he found a shining arch and threw a stone through it. To his surprise, the stone transformed, as if it had gone back in time. While exploring the area, the dolphin found another arch and decided to do the same test. However, this time, the stone he threw disappeared completely. which made Delphius imagine that the arch was sending objects into the future. So he planned to travel to the past in order to return to Fish Town and prove his theory. Meanwhile, Nick has already broken the big news to his boss and Marinius soon starts planning an invasion. Back in town, Alpha goes to tell his father-in-law what happened and reveals that Delphi was telling the truth. Concerned about the future of his city, Octavian holds an emergency meeting with the inhabitants to gather suggestions on how they can defend themselves against the coming attack. Just then, the young dolphin appears and claims to have a plan. He says that, before he disappeared, his father found 2 other arcs that allow him to travel back in time, and his plan consists of going back in time to the moment before the moray eels arrived. In this way, all the inhabitants can change their size and then return to the present to attack the invaders. Upon hearing this, the mayor says that this is a terrible plan and decides to follow Alpha's strategy. The army commander knows that the moray eels are on their way to the fortress to increase their size before starting a battle, and the population's mission is to prevent them from reaching the arch, because if they manage to transform they will become invincible. Led by Alpha, the fish are on their way to the passage through which they believe the moray eels will arrive. However, Delphi decides to bet on his plan and Zeb says he will accompany him. After arriving at the ruins, the little fish spots a mark on the wall and Delphi soon discovers that this is the mechanism for opening the secret tunnel. The pair then swim through the unknown location when they are surprised by a gigantic ball rolling towards them. If they don't escape in time, they will be crushed. But luckily, Delphi spots a hole in the tunnel wall and they both manage to save themselves. When they reach the end of the tunnel, the 2 friends find the first arch and Delphi is sucked into it. Then Zeb also goes through the portal and they both find themselves in the past. The problem is that the passage leading to the future arch is blocked, so they have no way through. Suddenly, Delphius appears and the dolphin has the chance to meet his father again. In the present, the exit from the fortress is open, but in the past, it was blocked, and this prevented Delphius from being able to return to his son. The dolphin then tells him that he has been digging a tunnel for a year in order to escape and asks his son to help him speed up the process. However, Zeb says they can't waste time on this, and Delphi tells his father about the attack by the moray eels. Meanwhile, in the present, the inhabitants of Fish Town start a battle, led by Alpha. Tired of waiting to be rescued, Mia decides to make her own escape, so she uses her own body to cut a hole in the roof of the fortress and escape. During the battle, Alpha and his soldiers have no trouble defeating the moray eels, as they are much smaller and weaker than the dolphins. However, when Nick appears, the situation changes and he easily eliminates all the enemies who try to defeat him. In the past, Delphi has an idea to escape and uses his secret trick to open a hole in the wall. In this way, they manage to complete their plan. At that moment, Mia is being chased by the moray eels and, after getting rid of their attacks, she swims towards the portal to transform. However, just as she was about to reach it, the young woman was hit and, once again, almost became moray eel food. Seconds before she is devoured, Delphi appears and distracts the enemies while Zeb attacks the monsters. When she sees her friends, Mia immediately recognizes them and her hope is renewed. Before going to help the rest of her people, the young girl crosses the arch and turns into a shark. Seeing her commander in danger, Dora attacks Nick and ends up becoming his target. The young woman was about to be devoured when Alpha decided to use the trick he learned from Delphi to attack the enemy and eliminate the mutant moray eel. Now that their most powerful soldier has been eliminated, the eels decide to flee, as they realize that the people of Fish Town are stronger than they imagined. Octavian then orders his soldiers to pursue the moray eels and ends up falling into Udo's trap. The fish has gathered some sharks to help him eliminate the octopus, because only then will he be able to achieve his goal of becoming mayor of the city. Just then, the quartet appears and attacks the sharks, causing them to be thrown far away. Now that the battle has been won, Delphi and Alpha make up and recognize that it was teamwork that ensured their victory. After the war, the dolphins return to their original appearance and, a few days later, it's time for Mia's wedding. Before swimming to the altar, the young woman goes to talk to Delphi, who is practicing his secret trick. The dolphin seems to be saddened and Mia gives him the opportunity to express his feelings. However, Delphi doesn't want to spoil the big day and decides to keep his love a secret. Before saying goodbye, he congratulates his friend on her wedding and wishes her all the best. When Mia leaves, the young one regrets not having opened his heart and his father encourages him to go after her to tell the truth. Mia and Alpha are already at the altar and Demetra asks if anyone objects to the wedding. At that moment, the young woman speaks up and says that she doesn't want to marry the groom her father has chosen. Suddenly, Delphi appears at the ceremony and declares his love for Mia. He regrets not having said it before and Mia says she loves him too. Now they both plan to get married. Confused by this turn of events, Octavian asks Alpha to do something, as he has just lost his fiancée. However, to his surprise, Alpha reveals that he didn't want to marry Mia either, because he's in love with Dora. So the mayor decrees a double wedding, which allows the two couples to find their happy ending. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.